Science is gender neutral, but society is not.
Society is not. There are many families that are very supportive. I love doing things with my hands, you know.
Welcome to Scientifically Yours. In this program, we introduce one woman scientist who has made a mark on the panorama of scientific investigations. In our country, not many people know that a large number of women scientists have made significant contribution to not only Indian science, but international science. Today we have Professor Indira Nath with us. Professor, let me begin with an irony. Science as a body of knowledge does not distinguish between sex or gender. Now here we have a program on women scientists. How do you react to this?
Yeah, I agree completely. Science is gender neutral. I never thought of myself as a woman when I was doing science or medicine or anything. So I think probably this notion of women scientists has come globally, mainly because they are being disadvantaged in recognition perhaps. And in the Western world, in fact, even in salaries for the same biodata, I mean, statistics are very clear. So maybe that is why in the last decade or so, there's been an effort to show the inequality that is existing.
So this is created mainly by the social, cultural and historical reasons that science is not considered to be a domain for generally women, and especially students who are from this gender are not encouraged to take up science till the last logical end. Because in India you feel as if a large number of women or girls are taking science subject, but over a period of time they are filtered out by social filters. This condition, do you think, can be changed over a period of time, or we need to put more efforts?
I think if you ask me, science came to India a little later perhaps, and therefore we are in fact in a better situation.
For that matter, education came to India, modern education came to India.
Modern education also may have come late, yeah. So I think girls came in, much more in India than they did in the West. In fact, in the West, certainly the social milieu was very much against women going into hard sciences particularly. And we are that way a little better off. But you're right, the statistics are very clear even for India and all over the world, but also for India we have now statistics to show that as you go up the pyramid, you get filtered out a lot.
Yeah, it's the human mind. If it is looking at maybe Newton's laws or at the galaxies or at a cell, as you have looked very keenly into cells and you have peeped into, there are always problems that are encountered. And when you start cracking these problems, your mind doesn't think in terms of men and women, and you are gender neutral that way.
One is gender neutral, certainly in science, but I wonder, I've started wondering as I get older.
Science is gender neutral, yes, but society is not.
Society is not. But no, I was just looking at it in this way. Is the approach to science or the way we ask the questions, would that have a different difference between men and women? Because you see, whether it's administration or the normal life, let's face it, women are much better at multitasking, and they're also better at team building. Those kind of things, there are studies to show that perhaps women are better at team building and bringing up the juniors and things like that. Those statistics...
Are you arguing that now, after Manhattan Project, it's always a big science and individuals don't really do science in that sense they used to do in 18th century or 19th century. So today, if women are scientists
Yes.
and scientocrats, then we'll be doing better science?
I think they are good at team building, and perhaps also it comes naturally to take care of your junior colleagues and junior scientists, and perhaps understand the problems a little more. On the other hand, they get a bit lost, I'm told, because they're in for a lot of details. You know, we like to fuss and be absolutely clear that the full stop and comma are in the right place. By which time this man who is your neighbor has probably published the paper, you know.
Ultimately, in the long run, this is what science is all about, that you take care of all the problems, that you should not get biased and you have to be very meticulous.
Well, that is true, yes. But I think there is a time when you're doing an experiment when you have to decide that, okay, this is the big idea, this is the breakthrough, and is there sufficient data to convince yourself that that's, or convince your peers that it's breakthrough. But girls are coming into biology a lot, and of course now in India they're coming into engineering also. In South I find a lot of girls are doing engineering, there's no problem.
Now we are talking about both social phenomena as well as the scientific milieu and culture. Within scientific culture, maybe there is no discrimination between men and women. But did you feel that education, which is highly embedded in social and cultural milieu of any country or any civilization, did you feel that there was a disadvantage that you faced repeatedly while acquiring education, and especially going to science stream?
Not really. No, I can't. I'm afraid I can't make that an excuse for my failures. No. I went to one of the best schools, and of course it was a girls' school. That's different. But we did have boys across the road, so we were okay in giving our senior Cambridge exams, etc. Doing medicine, it was tough getting into All India Institute. In our batch, we were just 7 girls. And we were a batch of 70. And when I started going into immunology and subjects like that, I didn't face, I think, as much problem as perhaps others would have who went into basic sciences. Mainly because amongst doctors there isn't that kind of a bias, you know. And All India Institute, I mean, we women were pretty aggressive. There were lots of heads of departments and things like that. We didn't have a problem. But where I did face, interestingly, is when you're doing science and you go out to international meetings, etc., people are surprised that you're a doctor, you know. That was a surprise. Oh, you're a doctor. And then you say you're a pathologist. Oh, you actually do pathology. And of course we had to do all these postmortems and everything. And the only time I felt slightly bias against medical was also when I went to do a postdoc in England. I got a Nuffield fellowship, which is one for the Commonwealth country, and I went. I must say that I didn't face, but I know colleagues and friends of mine, both abroad as well as in India, who have missed out on their due,
We'll surely talk about that. It's a short break. We'll come back again.
कैसे हुआ आसमान नीला,
पानी को कौन करता गीला,
ये धरती क्यों है गोल,
हमारे जीवन में सूरज का क्या है रोल, हवाई जहाज हवा में कैसे उड़ जाता,
पूरी को कौन है भुलाता,
कौन भरता इंटरनेट में इंफॉर्मेशन,
क्या कभी हवा भी होगी रेशन।
सोचोगे नहीं तो पता कैसे चलेगा विज्ञान प्रसार, ताकि हर निर्णय ज्ञान आधारित हो। विज्ञान प्रसार A50 Institutional Area Sector 62 Noida. Email info@vigyanprasar.gov.in. Website www.vigyanprasar.gov.in.
Welcome back to Scientifically Yours. Today we have Professor Indira Nath with us, and the discussion is going on about how others who have faced problems just because they were from the fairer sex or the gender bias. Would you comment on that?
In India, of course, you hear complaints, but from the younger women scientists, that's part of it is this social problem. After PhD, of course, parents are wanting you to get married, so the girls get married and their husbands are older or perhaps in a more established job, so they have to follow their husband wherever they are. And so
and
then
you
they
feel
miss...
that the pressure on women is much more than men to get married at a certain age.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, that is definitely there.
And
because
that
there
becomes
is-
an impediment in the career.
Yeah, because there is a biological clock by which you have to get married and have your children. And so while you're having children, the pressure is also more. Not because there are many families that are very supportive. I can tell you, when I had my daughter, my in-laws were extremely good. And my mother kept an eye and my in-laws kept an eye so that I could carry on. So, but in spite of that, we have a lot of emotional baggage, you know, for the baby, which I think nature is endowed on us. So that gives a break at a very critical stage in a girl's career, you know, because that's a time when she should be really active and think of all these new ideas, because as you age, you're just... sometimes the ideas are not that...
So are you saying that at that age,
there is a
as
break.
a girl,
Yeah.
a student, or as a woman, should be more courageous to take on the problems and continue scientific investigations?
Yes, it needs a
It
lot
will
of
take
strong
more courage,
will.
but one has to do that.
A strong will is required at that time, yeah. And a lot of support is also required. And that way, I'm very proud that India is giving that support to that in-between age group.
And we are fortunate.
We
The
are very
girl
fortunate.
is fortunate when she's
Absolutely.
placed in India, because a lot
Yeah.
of support comes.
Absolutely.
Whereas in Western countries, the support structure is not there at all.
This kind of structure is not there. We have both the family support and we have, of course, home help, plus now with the DST, DBT, all of them getting involved in supporting women scientists, they're giving fellowships so that if you have a break in service also, you can carry on.
Those students who are listening to Professor Indira Nath should feel fortunate that they are
Absolutely.
placed in India, where they have best of the two worlds. The science can be done here, and there is family support. See, you saw a very big dream in 80s to establish a department of biotechnology in the country. You were among the first ones. So I would like to ask two questions. That one, that you saw this big dream. What gave you the courage to see such a dream? And also, do you feel that we have moved on as per the blueprints that was there in your mind, or we have deviated from it?
Actually, what was happening to me at that time was I wanted to do basic science, really go into fundamental science. And I was in this medical milieu, you know. I mean, we were very fortunate to be at AIIMS, because AIIMS was at that time really doing extremely good work in many departments. But there was something that was missing. And though even when I came back to do immunology, it was a nascent stage, you know, in the 70s, immunology was not there. But fortunately, I had someone, a mentor like GP Talwar, who had started it, and so I was able to fit in and do something. Then I wanted to do things like molecular biology, you know, that was coming up, and I knew we needed that to investigate the disease I was doing and to investigate the pathogen that I was interested in. And there was no way I could do it. So in fact, it's interesting, I just went to discuss this with the person who became the first secretary of Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Ramchandran, to say, I want to leave AIIMS, can you find me a place? He said, no, why should you leave AIIMS? You bring it, you bring the subject of your interest into AIIMS, and then we are looking for...
But your first love remained science, and doing investigation in your area of expertise, which was pathology, and then you moved on to many other problems that you cracked,
Yeah.
and you got a
Actually,
large number of laurels and awards.
I loved first immunology and then the disease I was investigating, leprosy, which is even now not solved intellectually. I mean, all the things that happen during that disease. That is fascinating. I think it's a true model to study a medical problem.
See, even the men and society as a whole looked at lepers like they are outcast. And being a woman scientist, what kind of problems did you face?
Actually, you're not supposed to use this word leper anymore.
Anymore.
It's very
Yes, it's a
politically
very
non.
derogatory-
Yeah,
derogatory.
it's
It has been.
it's stigmatizing.
This is exactly what I want to
It's
point
a
out.
stigmatizing
That there was
disease.
a society.
Yeah.
We have come a long way, but there
Right.
was a society which used these words.
Absolutely.
They were looked down
yeah,
upon.
Yeah, when I started, definitely. But you know, something exciting happened also when I started working on leprosy, and that is the time that we got these multi-drugs therapy, as we call it. You know, more drugs came in than the one dapsone that we had for leprosy. And I don't know who persuaded Mrs. Indira Gandhi, but somebody did, and she got it into her head that we must eliminate or eradicate leprosy with multi-drug therapy. So right at that very young age, I remember the meeting that Dr. Swaminathan in fact chaired. She had asked him to chair, to talk about multi-drug therapy across the country. And the stigma part of it, I don't know if I faced the stigma, but certainly that was a stigmatizing time. So I must say, going around the villages over the years, I saw the stigma also going away. You know, there was a time when a woman won't come and tell you about a patch, but there came a time when they would, you know, just say, will you look at my back? I think I have a patch. So both, you know, both socially and otherwise it was changing.
What you are saying is that we are scientifically still there are problems to
There
crack,
are a lot of
and
questions. Lot of questions.
unable to solve
Yes.
those questions
Yes.
as of now.
Yes.
But tomorrow, the younger generation is going to solve. Don't go anywhere. We'll take a break here and come back very soon.
कैसे हुआ आसमान नीला,
पानी को कौन करता गीला, ये धरती क्यों है गोल, हमारे जीवन में सूरज का क्या है रोल, हवाई जहाज हवा में कैसे उड़ जाता,
पूरी को कौन है बुलाता,
कौन भरता इंटरनेट में इंफॉर्मेशन,
क्या कभी हवा भी होगी रेशन।
सोचोगे नहीं तो पता कैसे चलेगा? विज्ञान प्रसार, ताकि हर निर्णय ज्ञान आधारित हो। विज्ञान प्रसार A50 Institutional Area Sector 62 Noida. Email info@vigyanprasar.gov.in. Website www.vigyanprasar.gov.in.
Let scientific temper be the basis for building nation. Welcome back to Scientifically Yours. Today we have Professor Indira Nath with us, and we were discussing the social implications of science and vice versa, society's impact on how science is done and who will do the science. Now, Professor Nath, you have got all the awards that one can aspire for. Society has definitely taken notice of what contribution you have made, and it's great contribution anyway.
Thank you.
Could you tell our viewers that what kind of drudgery you had to undergo and what kind of pleasure you drove from the investigations that you did in order to achieve this big success in life?
And I think the obstacles are there for you to step over, not for them to obstruct you. So of course there are problems. I mean, even in our own research, because it was patient oriented, so one had to be a little more careful, a little more ethical about everything. And also because these are patients who are in a way underprivileged as compared to, say, cardiac patients or someone. There were all those difficulties also because they did not like giving blood, and I have to take blood from them for doing immunology studies. The other thing is, of course, they themselves are so stigmatized in the earlier years that one had to take care of that aspect. But I must say, I was also, when I used to go into the field, outpatients was different, whether it was mostly I worked in Safdarjung Hospital's dermatology department, and it was a different scene. The doctors were very helpful and the patients were good also to us. One is very grateful to the patients. But when I went to the field areas in Baroda, etc., really they don't know me from anyone. I'm coming from Delhi, I'm coming with syringes and knives to take biopsies, etc. And I was so touched by one of the patients I met in a village who said, I tried to explain to him that what I'm doing may not be of immediate use to him because it is research, but I'm hoping that it will have some long-term effect. And then he said, well, you've come all the way from Delhi, so if you're taking this much trouble, this is the least I can do. And I was so touched, and actually I have never forgotten that they had so much faith in the fact that research could do something, maybe not for them, but for others. So one had all these very exciting moments.
Do you still feel we lag behind the West in this area of expertise?
No, I don't think we do now, certainly, because we have also the facilities. But I was going to say the advantage we had, and that's why I was perhaps able to make a little mark in the field, is not only did we have the patients with us, most of them who were working in America were going to South America or getting blood from there, from patients, and they had to go elsewhere. Secondly, the other advantage we had is our clinicians. We have really brilliant clinicians in leprosy area. We and the Brazilians also. The Brazilians, I know many of them, and they are, because of the experience, so they may not have had all the latest gadgets, but the clinical acumen and the clinical experience they had, and the pathologists who had been in the field for many years were enormous. The kind of questions they would ask would make you think, further. So we had those advantages.
What was the landmark discovery in your career that gave you a high?
Well, there were, I think, 2 or 3 things perhaps. One of them was trying to understand why the leprosy patients, which is still an open question, are not able to mount a response against the bacillus, whereas others could mount it.
We are talking about immunity of the system.
Immunity, exactly. The other thing was trying to see if one could grow the bacillus in a quick manner. Otherwise, you had to put it into a mouse, wait for 9 months, and then to see if the drug worked on it or not.
So you grew cells, human cells,
which we call macrophages, which actually, it's those cells in which the leprosy bacillus lives. So then we put, from the biopsy, we took the bugs out and put them into the culture. Then they would go into the cells, and then we would use a radioisotope to see how long they survived. Then the other thing perhaps is that we discovered, we looked at the, that was the time when one of the scientists in the United States at Whitehead Institute made a library of genes that would be in leprosy bacillus. He expressed it in a bug that grows, E. coli. and one could pick up, therefore, the genes of interest. So there, the Western scientists were using what we call monoclonal antibodies to pick up the proteins of interest and then clone the gene. And well, I thought, why should I do that? Monoclonals are from the mouse, and I'm not interested in the mouse immune system.
Had a much better idea.
Exactly, we've got humans. Yeah. So we took, therefore, patients' antibodies and then screened. And this was my colleague Suman Lal, who had just joined me as a postdoc and who had done PhD earlier. And she just told me, ma'am, don't ask me what I'm doing for 1 year. Just leave me alone. So I left her alone. And then she cloned the gene. Absolutely. And then she cloned this gene. So now that one we were able to look at further. And then we found, interestingly, that if you looked at the sequence and made peptides, etc., then the leprosy patients that don't see the whole bacillus are able to see parts of the bacillus in this form. So it showed us that they're not totally unresponsive. They have some responsiveness. Right. We just have to be, try and pick out what they will respond to. So that we are still continuing with.
And it took 40 years for you, about 30 to 40 years, to come up to this stage.
Well, this one, this one I think we published in PNAS in about 90s, yeah.
How do you find time for embroidery?
Oh, I love doing things with my hands, Maybe that's why I took to the lab. I like pipetting, I like bonsai, I like embroidery, and I do knitting. People laugh because they can't believe, that I can sit down patiently and do knitting.
So while doing science, you can also pursue a large number of interests. It's not that science makes you dull and dry. You can be as colorful personality
Absolutely.
As Dr. Indira is. Would you like to sign off with some kind of a statement, inspirational statement for the younger generation?
I think what I find exciting with the young generation is they seem to know so much more than we did, and they have this great access to information. We had to wait 3 months to get a journal. Now you can look it up on the internet. So I think it's an exciting time. It's a very exciting time, and we shouldn't let ourselves be discouraged by minor irritation.
It's been a wonderful time that I've spent with you. We'll be back next week with another fascinating personality who has excelled in science and technology.